Hey, welcome everybody to the Talent and Strategy Show here on the Success is a Choice Podcasting Network. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jamy Bechler, and with us as always is our other co-host, Ruston Pierce, who is the president of Affinity Recruiting and Consulting, longtime headmaster, longtime sports coach, just all around good guy. Ruston, welcome back to the show.
Good morning.
Well, good morning. Our special guest star of the show today, Johnny Graham. Johnny Graham is the head of school at Williamsburg Christian Academy. He's also founded schools. He builds schools. He makes education possible.
Sometimes from nothing.
Builds something from nothing, and he is the president of the Graham Group. Johnny Graham, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jamie. Glad to be with you all this morning.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'm not sure I gave you the best intro in the world and told everybody who you are, but you can do a little bit better. Give us a 30,000-foot kind of view, snapshot of who you are, what you do, how you build, as Ruston says, build something out of nothing.
Well, you're far too kind. I'm blessed to be a servant leader. My career really began in 1997 while I was just a sophomore at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. My first job in secondary education was teaching young people who had failed United States history, teaching them, and they were only a year or two younger than I was, and they, would pass United States history. And then from there, got a job at an independent school, boarding school in the mountains of North Carolina. So for the first 10 years, I was teaching, coaching, and dorm parenting. And that was going to be my career. I was happy doing that. I just wanted to be a varsity boys head basketball coach until 2006. And then once I had a family and children and responsibilities changed from 2006 till now, I have been in school leadership. And yes, you are correct. My niche is to be a school improvement specialist. So I either help build the organization from scratch, or in the case of Williamsburg Christian Academy, I come into a community that wants to strategically improve. And then we build that roadmap to success. So it's an honor to be here, as I said, with you all this morning.
So I've been blessed to know Johnny for a long time. We actually went to high school together, and I've watched his entire career and watched everything he's done. Johnny, I'd love for you to share with our viewers, what was it, and maybe this is two different answers, what was it that drove you to education, and what is it that gets you up every morning going, I want to go run a school today?
Okay, that's two different answers. First of all, Ruston, you may remember Woody at the Macaulay School in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm a year older than Ruston, by the way, and so he was a year behind me. But Woody infused in us this love, whether you loved education or not, history or not. He was just the quintessential paradigm of master teacher. And in 1994, I had such an amazing experience in his class. I said, if I can do what he does every day as well as he does, I'm going to be okay in life. And that's where I made the decision. All I wanted to do was be a history teacher and coach, right? That's what I thought my career path was going to be. But yeah, Woody really inspired me at the Macaulay School when we were there, Ruston. Second part to your question, and it goes, actually, Macaulay is involved in a small way. We had a Visitors Day, April 3rd, 1992. We're driving from central North Carolina to southeastern Tennessee. And truth be told, I did not want to attend a boarding school at age 15. didn't want to leave my friends. I think that's typical. But after the Macaulay visit, on the same day that the tour had occurred, my best friend in Central North Carolina was shot and killed that evening. And it served as a wake-up call to me that surroundings perhaps needed to change. What I thought was my wholesome network probably needed to change. And so I was forced to mature at age 15 and really consider what my life was going to be. And I am a believer, I'm a Christian. And so I told the Lord then and there that, he provided this opportunity to me and he's allowing me to live. I'm going to serve people through the ministry of education every day that I can. And so that's where the ultimate drive to be this servant leader educator really came from. And that is why the 21 hour days don't even seem that long, because I go back to April 3rd of 92 every day of my life and just thank the Lord for being here and having the ability to educate and enlighten others.
Well, when I was going to high school, there were many days where I wish someone had started a different school. I wish that I didn't have to go to the school that I was at. And I was just looking, I don't know how many times I just wish that there was a school out there where all we could do is lunch and gym class, lunch and gym class, lunch and gym class, and then a snack and then more gym class. But what is the process of starting a school? That seems like such a huge, grandiose thing. How does someone even go about thinking about starting a school? Why would you start a school? What's that whole process look like?
Okay, great question, Jamie. Some of the first things you have to do, one, you have to do a feasibility to see if you can even raise the money to procure the property. That probably is job number one. Procure the donors, really secure the funding for it. Then you've got to get a commercial real estate agent on board. In my case, we were looking from every property between Pennsylvania down to southern Florida. And so in every one of those states, I had a commercial real estate agent identified, and my donors got in my truck with me one June evening of 2016, and we drove pretty much, I think, 4,000 miles across all the states, looking at about 12 different properties between Pennsylvania and Florida. So you got to do that. You have to develop the mission. That takes about 11 months. It's not an easy process, the mission of the school. You have to write the curriculum. That's a part. You have to have a phase 1, phase 2 environmental study. You have to get all your buildings zoned and approved. We moved into a former college campus that was operational between the 1850s and the early 1900s. So the zoning and inspections, that didn't go too well at first. So you have to pray and really be ready to spend a lot of money to get those buildings literally up to code. Then the fun part, now you got to recruit the staff. By the way, I was the only employee doing all of this for the first 11 months of the process. So that was fun. Now globally, I was recruiting all the staff. Then you have to have an admissions department, which I didn't have yet. You have to begin recruiting the students. And by the way, be willing to spend about 6 figures for the first 3 years just in marketing and promotions. Then once you've done all that, then the final step, I won't say final, I'll say penultimate. One of the last steps is to be certified for opening your school's doors, one from the health department, and then two from whatever state department of education. So I did that in about 8 months' time, achieved Maryland State Department of Education. They inspect all of your curricula, all of your personnel files, all of your health inspection reports and zoning. And then you have a chance to open. And so our first day of school, keep this in mind, Jamie, was August 17th of 2017. We were certified by Maryland State Department of Education literally a week and a half before school started. So it's a nip and tuck process. So you really ask a loaded question there, but that is all you need to do, Jamie.
That's all.
To start your own school. That's it. There's really nothing to it. But no, and all jokes aside, I do assist, groups that want to open school, and I've helped to found 3 additional independent boarding and day schools since the founding of Springdale Preparatory Schools in North Central Maryland.
So we have a wide range of people who listen and watch this, and they're in all kinds of industries. So I think a big takeaway of what you just said for anybody listening to this is you can have the biggest vision in the world. And saying we're literally going to start a school from scratch is a pretty big vision when you think about all the details that go into it. But whatever your vision is, you better have people that are process driven and highly detailed in order to make it happen. Because when you think about all the processes and details that go into what you just unpacked, like that is an enormous amount of work and steps. So I hope anybody listening just kind of took that transferable thought and applied it to whatever they do, because you can be the biggest visionary on the face of the earth. If you don't have people that can execute it, you're not going to get very far.
In 1 year's time, by the way, it wasn't a typical 2 or 3 year process. All of that took place in 1 calendar year.
Yep. It's incredible. So Johnny, you've done a lot of work in both day and boarding schools, and there are unique issues that happen when you're running a boarding school. One of them being staffing. Talk about what are those unique issues? What are the things you have to think about when you're starting a boarding school, running a boarding school that's a little different than anywhere else? And how do you handle those unique staffing issues?
One must be prepared for anything that can go wrong, will go wrong. I'll give you an example. It's this time of year in 2014, and I was in school leadership at an independent secondary boarding school in suburban Atlanta, Georgia. A student doesn't want to be there, decides he wants to do something to get expelled from the school. I can't make this up. Swims across the Chattahoochee River from the Sandy Springs side. Roswell, Georgia is 8 minutes drive if you go by car, but apparently it's only a quick swim if you go across the 200-yard Chattahoochee River. 2 ladies having a late lunch on a Friday at the Roswell Country Club call the police. By the way, I think the water is probably 15 degrees at this point. They call the police and say, I think a young man just swam across the river. So here it is, a Friday evening at 7 or 8 o'clock. I'm getting a call from the Roswell PD. Come to the hospital. We have your student, and he tried to swim across the Chattahoochee River to get away from your school. So those are the type things. True story, can't make it up.
Oh, I've been in schools long enough. You've got 100 of these and you can't make up any of them.
So 24/7, you will get a call and it will one up the last experience that you just had. That is what's different. So your D&O, your directors and officers insurance premium better be paid up is the moral of the story. When you have, there's more of a litigious culture at boarding schools. You're with them 24/7. Your public displays of affection policies, all of that need to be concrete, and the presence of adults needs to be concrete. So to your other question about the staffing, it can't be somebody who's looking for a job at a boarding school. It better be somebody who's called to do what they do and or has an extreme love and passion for serving at a res life facility. So that's one there. With the day school paradigm, people are going to hover over you. The stakeholders are more on top of you on a daily basis. And I had to get used to, when I worked at my first day school, I had to get accustomed to people leaving at 4:30. I said, what's that? You're trying to have meetings after 4:00, and I had to change my whole method around that. But my career is mostly in boarding, and yes, I have some day experience sprinkled in throughout probably half of my career. But it's really been a blessing for both. But yes, you have to have a flexible mindset to serve at a boarding school.
And I know you recruit people nationally and globally for positions. Back to that staffing question, because I'm sure staffing a boarding school is really difficult. What are the unique staffing issues that you have to deal with when you're trying to come up with people who are willing to live on campus, essentially?
Yes. Sometimes, since the prefrontal cortex that is responsible for good decision making and judgment, it's not fully developed till about age 25. So, you don't need somebody younger than 25 living in a dorm, to be quite honest. And I cringe to think, and I'm sort of outing myself, I was hired at 21 to live on a campus and teach young people. I cringe now at what I was doing 25, 26 years ago in schools, but I digress. It needs to be someone who's mature. It just needs to be, you may have a job. It used to be easy to find a Spanish teaching candidate. Now I've actually got to go abroad to find someone with that skill set willing to live on a boarding school campus. So some of it is COVID related. Some of it is the age of our workforce has changed. Skills that used to be more prevalent, not just at schools, but in companies, right? Having to find a finance director of a boarding school might be the hardest job of them all, the hardest position to fill, because it has to be somebody who unequivocally gets it, the priorities of spending. So that CFO position at a boarding and day school is very difficult. But you have to be willing to go anywhere to find the best people possible.
Well, I'm curious. You're talking about staffing. I'm curious about students, and you mentioned the young man on your swimming team. That was trying to get away from your school. He wasn't on the swimming team, but you mentioned that student trying to get away from your school. Most of us that deal with public education, yes, there's always a dollar amount associated with every student. You get money from the state, but you have a built-in market. You have a built-in community where you're going to get students. I'm curious, at a boarding school like this or at a private school, where's that balance between every student is a customer, every student, you need their money. you need them paying money, as opposed to, hey, I'm okay with letting someone leave. I'm okay with someone, don't let the door hit you on the way out. How do you balance that, so to speak? And hopefully I'm being articulate with this, or articulate enough.
That's a great question.
How do you balance that between, these are your customers, but you also sometimes have to have tough love. You have to have discipline. You have to tell them things they don't want to hear, but they could be leaving with their thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
You hit on, Jamie, one of the most profound leadership, a series of profound leadership lessons that I learned through secondary boarding education. First one is, not all money is good money. I'll repeat that for my head of school network friends. And Ruston is laughing because he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
There are people that when they go through the enrollment process, you can see it coming. Have you ever seen somebody about to fall or knock over a pitcher from the counter and you're like, no, right? You see it coming, and then the moment they enter your door, it's bad. And that one bad fit, first of all, can cause more dollars to withdraw from your organization and leave. So I'll repeat the first lesson. Not all money is good money. That's something I'm working with my staff on right now at Williamsburg Christian Academy. I don't care who you know. I don't care what your network is. I don't care how much you have, how many zeros in your bank account. If you're a bad fit for any organization I'm leading, I'm looking at serving the community's needs. And sometimes what's best for the community is for you simply to not be here. Now, we're going to say that in the most loving way possible. But my friend, fit matters. So that's the first lesson. The second is this. What are you really serving in that child? And is that child better off being at your school or not? Okay. And then thirdly, sometimes it has nothing to do with the student. I will tell you, Jamie, at least once a year, I have to separate mom and dad. It's like, I would love little Ruston to be at my school, but I'm sorry, this just isn't going to work out. And people think because we say partner with us that we're saying agree with everything we do. No, that's not what we're talking about. But you cannot hijack the culture. Any school I leave, I tell the faculty this, and I tell parents this. I tell the faculty at open pre-service, and then I tell parents at the opening orientation. This is not 1979 Beirut. This is not a hostage facility. So if you want to leave, you can leave. But
I don't know that I've ever heard of school
you cannot hijack the culture.
Beirut.
Right. But the point, you cannot hijack the culture, my friend. You just cannot. And so that's where I really make that decision. All jokes aside, I know I have a way of phrasing things sometimes, and it makes for interesting trainings with boards, by the way, and trainings with faculty teams and leadership teams across the nation. I'm going to Thailand for one, and I'm looking forward to that. But we have these very open conversations, and I think they really help people and liberate people because, yes, sometimes we're in servitude to the almighty dollar when you actually get more dollars by having the healthy culture, because it is culture over everything. And the moment you have a toxic culture, you can forget strategy. You can forget the best plans, the best vision. So that has a little bit, Jamie, to do with that very profound question that you just presented.
So, Johnny, I'm curious, how do you prioritize? Because you just talked about a lot of different leadership lessons there. How do you prioritize the daily routine, the tasks that have to get done, while also leading the people who report to you, as well as key stakeholders in the community, people around you? How do you balance those two things?
It's interesting, and I will be brutally honest. I'm probably the worst person in the world to ask that question because I work too many hours in a day and I'm probably too present. I will say, in the general sense, there are short-term objectives, there are long-term, goals. You have to know everybody else's position. You have to be able to fill in. I had a few departures last year, and we were unable to fill those. So I had to be part of the solution and help chip in on the ground. But as you know, head of school, a lot of people always say, "Oh, you're a principal of a school." No, I'm not. The principals report to me. Picture it like a university president is what I explain to people. I'm trying to grow endowment. I'm trying to make sure that 20 or 30 years from now, the same organization that you know now is the organization that your grandkids will know when they come to school. You're trying to just raise money. You're trying to make sure that people's livelihoods are intact. You're trying to grow the organization and move that forward. So yeah, that's one of those things that, in an equal world, yeah, priorities would exist. But you know this from being a former head, Ruston. Sometimes you don't control that. We all have a plan, as Mike Tyson so eloquently said, but sometimes an independent school day, whether it's boarding or day school, will hit you in the mouth in a way where, well, I had that schedule, but I guess that's out the window. Call your wife and say, don't wait up, and you get it done. But my day sometimes, the other night, you wind up at 1 a.m., you finish up at 1 or 2 a.m., and then some mornings you're back in the office at 5 or 6 a.m., and that's how it rolls. And so I'm probably the worst person in the world to ask about balancing priorities, and I'll just be honest and transparent about that one.
That's okay. But as a leader, you're not going to be perfect. But you said you're not necessarily a principal. You're more of a CEO. You're overseeing. But regardless if you're a principal, if you're the CEO type, or if boots on the ground, whatever, a teacher, you have to be a leader. You have experienced a lot throughout your career in education. What is maybe one or two key leadership principles or thoughts that serve you well, that are kind of your overarching guidepost when it comes to leadership, no matter what position you're in?
Most people want you to be honest and transparent with them. Is one, and then the other is what needs to be done in someone's best interest, whether it's an individual student and family, or whether it's your entire faculty and staff. What is best is not always what people want to do, and no is liberating. Obviously you're going to be very euphemistic. I don't know anybody who just says no for a living and is successful. But the art of no, or the art of giving people choices and alternatives, is very empowering, both for school leaders and for the recipients of that information and the folks they serve. So those would probably be three top lessons. And so when you walk with courage, you walk in integrity, and what people see is what they get, and you don't have closed door agendas, I think you really have a chance to connect with people and lift them higher in a role. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. How can I serve you and challenge you to the point where you're better tomorrow than you came in today?
Absolutely. So I'll be transparent since you talked about honesty. There was a little bit of an ulterior motive for having Johnny on the show today. I'm really, really excited. Affinity Recruiting and Consulting does a wide range of things. You can see all of it at affinitytoday.com. But the Graham Group does a lot of really good stuff too. And we are really, really excited to announce that we're forming a strategic partnership because the things that Johnny brings to the table are not things that we currently offer or currently offer well. And he is going to make us better. And so really excited for the things that he's going to bring to the table. If you're someone out there listening, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in, if you're interested in strategic planning, Johnny is a fantastic resource for that. And I think you heard the detail and the ability to create process just in his responses today. If you're a church or a civic group considering starting a school or a boarding school, he's going to bring that service to the table for us. So we'll be engaging in school creation and boarding school creation and consulting. I know that Johnny has created more curriculum and academic processes than I can count. And so he brings that to the table for us. We'll be offering academic consulting, academic planning, and probably the biggest thing, and we get requests for this all the time. Johnny has a history of doing global and domestic search. And so if you are in need of employees, and if you're in need of employees in other countries, we are going to have that available now through the Graham Group. So really excited for all of that, for the opportunity to partner well. I'm a big believer. You shouldn't try to do things that you're not good at. You should focus on the things that you are good at, and then surround yourself with people who can provide the rest. And so we really feel like that's what this partnership is. I think we do local search, we do fundraising, we do human resources very, very well. And all the parts of organizations that we aren't currently providing or aren't currently doing to a high level, the Graham Group brings into our equation. So we are really, really excited to announce this partnership. We would love for anyone who has any questions to reach out to either Johnny or myself, and we'd be more than happy to connect with you and help in any way we can.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
go ahead, Johnny.
I'm on it. That's amazing.
yeah. So if you if you want a school that's better than 1978 Beirut, Johnny is the guy. No, that great marketing there. I love that story earlier. But
that is an example I've literally never heard anywhere, but I am absolutely stealing.
well, it's awesome because you set the bar. I mean, most people set the bar too high. They overpromise and underdeliver. It always could be worse. Guys, cheer up. Look on the bright side of things. This isn't a hostage situation in Beirut. Love it.
Holy cow.
Yeah, good job as a host right now of stopping the show like that. But hey, I see all those books behind you. People can't see it if they're listening to this in their car, on the treadmill, listening to it on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, wherever they listen to their audio podcast. But you have a bunch of books back there. Is there a favorite book that you have, or a couple books that you might have? Because a lot of times people that listen to podcasts like this, they also like to read.
Robert K. Greenleaf, Servant as Leader, is one of those. Doris Kearns Goodwin, A Team of Rivals, dealing with Lincoln and his cabinet. Zora Neale Hurston, Ralph Ellison, being a history and English teacher, you had to read all of the time. And so I've got a bunch of classics. My favorite, though, of all time is Dr. William Edward Burghardt Du Bois's 1903 classic, The Souls of Black Folk. So I've just got it all. And I was a double major in college, so both United States history and African American studies. And so that makes for a lot of interesting discussions with my history and English department here at Williamsburg Christian Academy.
Years ago, I went on vacation to the Outer Banks, the OBX in North Carolina. And I'm going to guess that in the history of mankind, I might be the only person that ever read A Team of Rivals on the beach in the OBX every day. People looked at me and they probably were like, what a nerd reading that big, huge book on the beach here instead of, going out in the waves and stuff. But a great book. I'm always curious about if that can happen today, if you can put people together that have different philosophies that are essentially rivals, but make a dream team and they all come together. And it's a very interesting concept.
It's unfortunate that it cannot happen today because of tribalism that has really taken over our country. Speaking of being hijacked, I digress. I won't get into that, but no, unequivocally not. That could not happen in today's time. But Lincoln, it's just another aspect and facet of his absolute brilliance. And so that's one of my soapbox topics is President Lincoln. And right, you even write about an Emancipation Proclamation that you really don't believe in, but it's a military recruitment strategy because it can hurt your adversary. I mean, are you kidding me? That's just, that's a little bit of stuff I have on my, in my shelf right there. So we get after it in a hands-on fashion with the faculty. And I think they make for very spirited discussions about how, not just how teachers should teach, but how learners learn, how the brain works.
Well, we appreciate all your insights. What we'd like to do, wrap up the show, is get some closing thoughts from both of the two smartest people on the show, which would be Ruston and Johnny. So Ruston, we'll start with you with closing thoughts, insights, things that maybe you're taking away from the show.
For whatever reason, I've been running into conversations all week about process and detail-oriented people. And it continued on this show. I was not expecting Johnny to unpack that unbelievable year he spent creating a school. But again, I go back to what I said earlier. I hope everybody heard the amount of detail and the amount of process involved in that. And you can have the biggest vision on the face of the earth. If you don't have people to execute it, it's not going to go very far. Johnny, what about you? Well, what's your biggest takeaway?
From today, I'm just honored. First of all, this platform is enormous, and it's just another example of how God has been better to me in my life than I've been to myself. I'm that small kid still that grew up in Lemon Springs, North Carolina, about an hour south of Raleigh. And I cannot imagine that I've traveled where I've traveled and that I get to do what I do every day. And I think if anybody gets to do something, then they're really not working that much at all. And that's how we should probably look at life. But thank you, gentlemen, for hosting me today. I had more fun in this 45-minute segment than probably I've had in the past couple of weeks. So that is a compliment of epic proportion. Thank you for a very in-depth conversation. And I'm going to take this moment here with me always and refer back to it frequently. So thank you for that gift.
Absolutely. And make sure, reach out to Johnny. You can reach out to him at thegramgroup.net. We also have his email address in the show notes and his other social media links in the show notes as well. So reach out to him, let him know you enjoyed his insights, but pick his brain a little bit or hire him to build your school so you can have a school of gym class in lunchtime, which is every kid's dream.
Bechler Academy.
The Bechler Academy for people that have no future, unless it's in dodgeball in Foursquare. But
hey, cornhole's on ESPN now. There's always a chance.
There's always a chance. So, hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining us, whether you're watching this live today or whether you're listening to this on the Success is a Choice Podcasting Network. We appreciate that. If you would kindly smash that little like button or just tap it, whatever you want to do, subscribe, whatever, that's great currency that lets people know about this show. It tricks the algorithms. You don't even have to pay us money. Just click a little button. It takes 1.2 seconds to do that. So kindly do that, and that'll help share the show. Otherwise, everybody, until next time, next Friday, same channel, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We'd love to see you right back here. But until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?